set my own house on fire. I hate it so much.
I hate it too.
All right,
I
I'm gonna
never
hit
use
go.
the new upload thing. I never use it.
Oh, it drives me nuts. Okay, I'm gonna hit go. I would like to start this live event. Yes. All right. I think we're live. I'm pretty sure. It seems to say that we're live. So hi everybody. If we are live, I can see the live chat right now. So just let me know if you can see us. Just wave, say hi, say hello. Today we are gonna have a chat, or I'm gonna have a chat with Mr. Braxton Hunter, who has decided to grace me with his presence, and I'm very, very glad. He and I talk in the background sometimes about this wild and crazy world that we live in of the atheist Christian online community, and some of the things that frustrate us about it, and some of the ways that we can have dialogue better. And we thought that we would kind of take it to the streets and have that conversation here for you guys to see. So if you're not familiar with Braxton, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to let Braxton introduce himself and tell everybody what he's all about. And your links are down in the description too, Braxton, if anybody wants to check you
Cool.
out. So yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Shannon. I appreciate that. Yeah. So my channel is youtube.com/Braxton Hunter. And you can get to my website by going to trinityradio.org, or you can just go braxtonhunter.com. And I currently serve as the president of Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary in Evansville, Indiana. And that's where I'm at right now. And that's what I do for a day job. So Trinity Radio, or my YouTube channel, is not my full-time gig. And it's hard too. It's hard to juggle both of those things. As you probably know, Shannon, having a real life and kids and everything else. So, but more than that, I'm just a Christian guy who has a YouTube channel, and I'd love to see us have better conversations about stuff we disagree with.
Yeah, I think you and I align pretty closely on that. I mean, theologically, we don't align at all, but when it comes to how people interact with one another and some of our frustrations, based on our previous interactions, I think there's a lot of ways we align in ways that people on both sides of the spectrum, and really on all sides of the spectrum when it regards these sorts of conversations, could really kind of conduct themselves better, I think. So yeah, sorry, go ahead, Braxton.
Yeah, one of the cool things was, so I didn't know who you were, but I've turned into kind of a response video channel, you know, and so I'm looking through the atheists, and I kept seeing you. I kept thinking, I think originally it was your interview with Michael Jones, and I kept wanting to find a video of yours that I could respond to. But a lot of them I agreed with, and the ones that I disagreed with, it wasn't really my sort of thing that I typically respond to. So, but I remember you tried to contact me, and you said, why don't you have your DM open on Twitter where I can send you a message? And I said, I have no idea what you just said. So
I remember that.
You taught me how to use Twitter, and you're absolutely right, because we started chatting a little bit there, and you just kind of get a sense for people. And I know you can't always trust this, but I got a sense from you that we had what you described, kind of a similar approach to this whole game. And so I felt safe talking to you. I didn't feel like you were going to try to, take my words and twist them or anything.
No.
And that may sound simple, but that's kind of hard on either side of this thing in this game.
It really is. Like when you enter into this spectrum, like I was saying to Braxton before we went on air, initially I would just fly headfirst into any and all conversations, any chance to interact, I would fly straight into them. And I think that I was a little bit naive at that point, not realizing the multiple levels of ulterior motives that some people have in this conversation, in this dialectic, particularly in this realm. And I immediately recognized the value of building stronger relationships with people that were on the opposite side of the spectrum, so that you could actually conduct these conversations, because no one's going to really want to have a conversation with you if you're approaching them from a combative stance. They're immediately going to be on the defensive. You're not going to each be able to open up regarding your stances on the issue in a really like open form that allows you to understand the other person holistically. They're going to come in with their shoulders up, and you're going to be doing more fighting than conversing. And I find I value, at least myself personally, more the opportunity to really understand how people come to beliefs, what frustrates them about the beliefs, what doesn't frustrate them, why they hold them where I don't. Like, all of those things are intriguing and valuable to me to find out. And if we're just fighting about the minutia of who's right and who's wrong and why and who's better and who's smarter and who has the more people to high five when they're done, those opportunities are lost. Like, what do you think about that sort of stance, or do you have a similar one?
No, I agree. And I think it's, and I'll tell you what, you can't judge a book by its cover, to be cliche about it, because honestly, when the first response video I did, besides Matt Dillahunty, the way this whole thing started was after I had a debate with Matt Dillahunty, I did a response video. He did too. And then I thought, that was kind of fun. And then Doug over at Pine Creek and Godless Engineer, I don't even know his real name, but
John.
Okay, John. Yeah, that's right, John. They both did videos, responses to me. Well, I still didn't plan on being a response video channel. So I thought I'll do one video that responds to both of them. And it was like an hour and 45 minutes long. And Cameron Bertuzzi was like, you totally should have cut that into 2 videos. But so when I first encountered Godless Engineer, it was his whole, the way he does his channel, I call him the provocateur, and so he's very much that way. And because it was a video about me, I really felt that way. But I'll tell you what, just here over the past few weeks, I have had a lot of good conversations with him privately, like I have with you. And I told him, I said, dadgummit, I did not think I would like you, but you're so likable.
He won you over, huh?
Yeah. I don't know if he would call me a friend or not, but I feel there's a friendly vibe there. Yeah. And that's the last person I would have thought.
Well, because he's done a lot of like bluster and bravado. So a lot of people, I think maybe him and other channels like him. And historically, this realm too, I'm going to kind of go a little bit meta here, because I think in previous years, this realm of dialogue, this realm of conversation has been very much positioned as an us versus them battle instead of an ongoing societal dialogue. And because of that, a lot of people are, do have a lot of bluster and a lot of bravado. And it also means a lot to people. Like, your faith means a lot to you. And a lot of the issues surrounding faith that I discuss, and some of the videos that I think you'd probably agree with, like, those are issues that mean a lot to me, and they have some intersections with, specific beliefs. So because it's emotionally charged, some people go straight for like that really emotional presentation. An emotional presentation can be channeled into something a bit more productive, or it can be channeled into something that's, a little bit more blustery. But recently, like, people like you, and I have a lot of conversations with Cameron too. I like Cameron. And Mike, I interact with. I think I frustrate Mike a little bit though, but I'm a little annoying on purpose with Mike, so that might be why, because he's so easy to get going. So there's more of an ongoing dialectic between the atheist community and the theistic and like Christian apologetic communities now, and I think that benefits both communities more so than the debate me bro sort of attitude that was previous. I think there's probably people that'll disagree with me on that, because maybe there's a market for that. But what do you think?
You hit a couple of things there that I actually made a note of in preparation to talk to you about this, which is, one, I think in order to have good conversations if you're an atheist with a theist and vice versa, we have to kind of recognize how the other side sees us. So when I sit down to make a video, I recognize that despite everything I can do to be nice and try to be likable and all those kind of things, I know that for atheists, at least many atheists, there are things in my worldview that they think are horrific. And I understand that. And to a certain degree, trying to kind of empathize, if that's the right word, you're the one with the psychology degree, but if I'm trying to empathize with them or sympathize, whatever, don't make fun of me, Shannon.
I'm not. I'm just smiling. I didn't say anything.
But whatever the right word is there, I get it. Like because I live in the same world. I've said this on videos before. I see the same movies. I have the same music. I know, I get it. I know how I think skeptics see someone with my worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized sitting down, these people genuinely think some of the things about my worldview are horrific. And guess what? I'm going to be okay with that and still try to move forward because, of course, the other way is true too. There are things that theists see, not about atheism necessarily in general, but about a lot of the things that typically are in a worldview that also includes atheism.
Mm-hmm.
We see some of those things as pretty nasty too. So that's okay because we just kind of have to accept that. And accepting that, I think, allows us to get past what you just said, which is the I think valid desire to be really passionate and kind of rip each other's throats out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of, once you kind of say, okay, I get that we both have that. We both see those things about each other. And we both find it shocking that the other reasonably intelligent person who I wouldn't know from anybody else at Starbucks holds that view, you know? And when I can get past that, I think recognizing how they see me and then just kind of being okay with it. You know, I don't know if that made any sense to you.
Kind of, because I think that generally speaking, like if you're going to look in generalities, then maybe perhaps that's the case. And I have kind of an opposite side of the coin perspective to you on that, but maybe leads us to the same sort of interaction strategy.
Okay, break it down.
Okay, so I try to assume nothing because it hasn't served me well. So I've interacted with Christians, theists of a myriad of varieties at this point. And it's never served me well to go into a conversation with anybody assuming that I know where their beliefs or opinions on any subject, period, stand simply because they adopt a moniker of Christian or of Muslim or of polytheist. Just because they hold that label, that doesn't mean that everything that I attribute to that label necessarily applies to them. Because I've discovered that there's such a nuance to the flavors of theism, even within, like, you can speak to somebody who says they're a Christian and who says that they're a Baptist and says that they go to X church, and you can know the pastor at that church and know the general preachings at that church. But that doesn't mean that one person sitting in the pew who's a member of the congregation of that church fully adheres to everything that's being preached from that pulpit.
Yeah, that's so true. You're right. Yeah.
So if I go in with the assumption that you're like, there's probably something about you that I'm going to dislike because I attribute X to this label, I'm doing a disservice to both of us. So
I think you make a really good point. So let's nuance it a little bit.
Okay,
as
go for it.
Thinking out loud here. Let's just say we did explore each other's worldviews and we did find those things. We did find, let's say I found one thing in your of your views, and I understand that it's important to say that atheism itself is not a worldview, right? But if I explore and I found that thing, or if you explored my worldview and you found some things, to recognize the emotion, the passion that incites, and to be able to still have the conversation without the angst and without the anger and that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. Like, I don't know did you see the conversation I had with Ben Shetner from Truth and Love?
Is that the one with the Chick-fil-A? Something about Chick-fil-A?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I did see all of that. I think I opened it up and I don't know. I don't think I finished that. Something to do with homosexuality, I think.
Yeah. So if you view, me and Ben differ a great deal on our perspectives, like night and day on our perspectives on that. My approach to that conversation wasn't to go into that conversation and tear Ben a new one because his stance is so diametrically opposed to mine and, from my perspective, harmful to people. My approach to that conversation, the approach I took to a lot of conversation, especially on contentious issues or issues where, I may see some overlap or something that's harmful, froze for a second, sorry, is to go in and try to understand. Like I always set goals if I'm going into a conversation. Of my goal in that particular one, and in most, is to go in, try to understand fully why that perspective exists for the person I'm talking to, instead of just saying it's wrong. I want to find out why, and I want them to have a very clear and concise understanding as to why I think differently. And if I go in just yelling at them, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, they can't, and the people watching can't fully understand how I come to where I'm sitting and why I deviate from where the other person is sitting. And they don't garner as much value, and I don't have the opportunity to continue those dialogues further. So that would be an example of where there's a fundamental disagreement, like you brought up, like existing outside of the two of us, where pardon me, where instead of just going in and screaming, we tried to explore each other's worldviews and perspectives to understand each other better, even if we still walked away disagreeing. Maybe the dialogue was furthered. If that makes sense.
I think that's exactly it. We did get around to it, and that is that when we discover those things, that we still. And you brought up something else there that I think is important, which is listening to understand instead of listening. Because as I've been married for 18 years, and so my debate skills were crafted in arguing with my wife, and we are systematic with it now, man. And one of the things that can be a problem that I think we are still getting past is the ability to not, because so often you're listening, and while they're talking, you're not really listening. You're catching a thing here or there, but really you're thinking of what you're going to say next, and that results in you talking at someone instead of to someone. And so I think it's important to try to understand exactly what they're going to say. Now, for some, I've had several debates, live public debates, and when you do that, there's something that is beneficial for a good debater. Not saying that I'm a good debater, but one thing I think is essential for a good debater is to really try to understand the other person's position, so that, like you said, I think you may have said this, so that your response is persuasive. It's clear that you didn't straw man them. One of the greatest compliments I can get on one of my debate videos, or even just on one of my regular response videos, is if an atheist says that I was fair to the position, I really tried to understand it, or I steel manned the position. That to me, I can't ask for anything more than that, because I think that is a demonstration of someone who's trying to find the truth.
Right.
And the kind of people I want to have conversations with are people who genuinely care about people and seem to want to find the truth.
Right. So that being said, this is something else that we talked about before. Are there instances where you have to, like, you can't approach a conversation cordially, or where you shouldn't approach a conversation at all? And, like, to you, what does that look like?
Well, now it depends on what's the setting we're talking about here, right? So, I mean, YouTube is one thing, but most of the conversations I have with skeptics, atheists, whatever you want to say, is not, or it may be online or it may not be online, but it's not on YouTube, right? It's real people, and real people are quite different often, because for those of us who are YouTubers, we do, whether we mean to or not, it's kind of like the reality TV phenomenon. When there's a camera on you, you're not exactly like you would be in other instances. Though there's
an observer bias that's an inherent part of us. You're being watched. So something about you is going to be,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. So, but if I'm just talking with everyday people that I encounter, I would try to have those conversations, but still, I want to have a conversation with someone, like if we're talking about a YouTube type setup, I would want to talk to people who Dr. Pritchett, my co-host, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a little snarkier than I am, but he brought up a really good point. Yes, and that is that if the only thing we have in common is that we disagree about something, about this issue, and that's all we have, then our conversation is probably not going to be as beneficial or meaningful. See, you and I, we're talking right now about something we agree about, and we've had many conversations like So that's important. Another thing that's important is that I really do, and I said this right at the end of my last comment, I want to talk to people who want to get to the truth. And everyone's going to say they are, but there are, and you said this before we went live, there are some people on the Christian side and on the atheist side who seem to look at this, and these weren't your words, but they seem to look at this as like a competitive sport or something. That's true. So I want to talk to the people who genuinely strike me that they want to get to the truth and who seem to care about people. And I don't mean to suck all the air out of the room, because I know this is not a monologue, this is a dialogue. But one thing, when I did a video for those that don't know, on 4 variations of atheist YouTubers, and when I was working on your section, I called you the atheist, or the atheist activist. Yeah. And I have a category for psychologizer, but I didn't know you had a psychology degree.
I thought that was so funny.
I still don't consider you the psychologizer.
Under the radar.
Yeah, was subversive with that. But no, because one of the things I say about the atheist activists that I believe is true is there are people like you, and I think to a certain degree, a genetically modified skeptic. Yeah. That guy. Mm-hmm. One thing I think is true about both you and he is you present yourselves as, and I believe you, that you really want to be helpful to people who are going through what you had to go through. There was some negative experiences you had when you became an atheist, and maybe not total acceptance from people. And I don't know what that's like. And so my heart goes out to you if people didn't treat you well. And so, but you kind of serve as a caregiver or an advisor or something to people that are in that position too. That tells me, okay, I know something about Shannon Q. At least in principle, she really does care about her audience. She really cares about people.
I do.
And since I believe that's true, and I believe you're looking for the truth, I think those two things need to be true about the person I'm going to talk to, generally.
Yeah.
Now, just as a caveat, if I get asked to do a live public debate somewhere, mm-hmm. I may not know that about that person. And in that setting, it's as much about the third party watching mm-hmm. as it is the two of us on stage. And so I might be more inclined to have those kind of discussions if I think it's going to be beneficial to either provide a counterbalancing voice to him or her and for the third party audience that's watching.
Right. So I have some things to say about this also. Like I mentioned earlier, I would kind of fly into conversations early on in this, and I'm not a debater. So I always tell people, like, if you'd like to debate somebody, I'm not your girl. I ain't it, chief. I'm not it. Go find somebody else who is an expert in whatever field. I'm not one of those people that'll just jump into a debate on a field that have no expertise in and attempt to talk with authority and construct opening statements about, stuff that I have no business debating for the most part. And it's also just not my thing. So those I just don't do just because that's not my thing. But when it comes to conversations and dialogues, I've learned that there's a subset of people in this realm who want to court controversy. And I've learned to keep an arm's length distance from the people who are looking for notoriety because they want to be in a perpetual state of fighting, and I'm no longer interested in that. I've also learned that there's a group of people, it's not just in this realm. I think it's just in society, like in general, that when they enter into these conversations in bad faith for the reasons that you stated, maybe, or they don't align with that seeking of truth and that forward thinking sort of momentum towards progressing understanding of each other and learning the truth about things and finding better ways to coexist and educate people. They're just really interested in even undermining your argument and misrepresenting your argument or misrepresenting your position or misrepresenting you in order to garner some sort of notoriety because they're, owning people.
Yeah, you know, there.
I no
Now,
longer do that because I don't think anybody benefits from those conversations.
so I might differ or slightly
Okay.
with what you said. Not really. So I do think if someone's going into it with the intention of misrepresenting and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we don't need to be talking to those people.
Right.
Nobody should be paying attention to those people because they're impeding the process that we're trying to accomplish at this very moment.
Yeah.
But what was the thing that I was going to disagree with?
Nothing. I'm amazing. Everything I said was awesome. Can't even think of anything.
I don't know. I know what it was. So there is this. I want to be honest about where I stand. I want.
Please do.
I don't want to present myself.
I'm not going to agree on everything.
I've been called a grifter, and I didn't know what that word meant, and I had to go look up.
Or pandering for money.
Is that what? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm poor, so that's not. But
doing a bad job. You can still be a grifter and not be good at it, Braxton.
Yeah. But I had to go and look up what that meant, and when I figured it out, so the thing is, people do assign motives to you that are not necessarily true, and in an area where, like you said a while ago, our passions are very strong because our disagreement is not over sports ball teams. Our disagreements are over. Yeah, I'm not a sports fan, so all the sports balls.
All of the sports balls, even the ones that don't have balls. Them too.
Hockey too. But so see, you keep derailing what I'm trying.
I know I'm garbage. Go ahead.
I know. So I want to be honest. So I do think I'm right. I know that atheists often say we're not claiming that God doesn't exist. We're saying we don't have a belief that he exists, but we're open to the possibility that we're not saying he doesn't exist. I got you, and that's fine. I do think I'm right about this. I think there are things in my worldview that I'm wrong about because I'm not perfect. I know that's a big shock, but there are maybe there's got to be several things I'm wrong about, and some of them may be things that I'm really passionate about. But I do think I'm right on the big things. And so one thing I appreciate about Pine Creek Doug is that he often says it like this, and I think maybe he's more right than he realizes. He says, I'm here to make you doubt. I'm trying to make your children doubt and leave the faith. I'm working for Satan. Just go ahead.
That sounds like Doug.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So with me, I want to be forthright like that.
Yeah.
And it's because I think I'm right, and because I do believe, and again, this is one of those things I know how it sounds from your end, but because I do believe that there are like eternal things at stake here. My goal is to persuade people. I do want to have the conversation, and it is true that I want to know why people arrive at the conclusions that they arrive at. But ultimately, I do hope that people will be persuaded that Christianity is true. So to lay all my cards on the table, having the conversation is important to me. And I believe that Christianity is falsifiable, if people know what that means. I know you know what that means. It doesn't mean it's false, but it means that you could show that it's false. Conceivably, in principle, you could show that it's false. And so because I believe that, I am open. But I do want to be clear about that side of my motivations.
Interesting.
So maybe I'm a grifter. I don't know.
That's very, very honest.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because a lot of people wouldn't necessarily hide that that's their motivation, but they wouldn't explicitly state that it's their motivation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's several people in the apologetics sphere who they wouldn't say, you know what, I'm in this because I want you to listen to me and I think I'm true and I want to change your mind. And there's a perspective, I think, on the side of atheists, and I may be guilty of this too. Like it may be an ingrained bias that there's like and it probably goes on the other way too, that apologetics and counter apologetics, the other side of that coin, can become a job. It can become a thing that you do to make money. And once something can become a job, a thing you do to make money, how you make your living, you have to be able to maintain it. You have to be able to do it. You have to be able to draw attention to yourself. And it's one of the reasons that I was talking to Paul about this today. Like if anybody ever wanted, like if a business or whatever ever wanted to sponsor me, I don't know if I could do it because I would feel beholden to present myself in a certain way. And I like the freedom of doing this, part-time as a hobby, because I know that everything that I express is my choice and my intention, and nobody has reason to question those for that reason. If that makes some semblance of sense.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But I think that that's one of the reasons that some people can come up against it, because grifting is a very real thing. There are people out there, and I assure you that it's true on both sides. There are people with atheist channels or with atheist organizations, and there are Christians and theists of all flavors with channels that they may not even fully be invested in everything that they're saying, but the reason that they're saying it is because they're paid to say it. How do you think we overcome that? That's a good question.
Okay, so let me narrow that. I was going to say expand it. Let me narrow it a little bit, because that's a big danger, I think, in the Christian world, in the evangelical world.
Yeah.
So even among people so I'm utterly convinced of Christianity, that I really do believe this. And I mean, all I can do is say that, but I really do believe it. And Pritchett said, my co-host, he said, I'll, in terms of debating people, if somebody wants to debate me, yeah, I get a paycheck to go debate, and he was kidding partly, but he was saying that, this is kind of, I teach at a seminary and this is what I do. Now I told him, he said, you wouldn't have gone and debated Matt Dillahunty if you weren't getting paid. And I got paid. I didn't get paid very much. And I said, of course I would. I said, I would have gone and debated him if I didn't get money, because my wife handles our finances. So once I give her the money, I don't know what happens to it anyway. So, but the thing about it is, not that she's spending it unwisely, but she just knows that realm better than me. Yeah. Within the Christian world, particular denominations, for example, or schools of a particular denominational perspective, you kind of have to, at some schools, you have to sign a statement of faith type thing to teach there. In certain churches, you have to agree with generally the statements of that church to become a member there. And so the pastor or the professor in a given church or school, respectively, doesn't have necessarily the freedom that he or she should have to change their mind on things. And I'm talking about theological things within Christianity. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that, man. And I've felt the pressure of it before when I've started to change on a position. Now, fortunately, I've been able to change and move on positions, and it hasn't been destructive. But I think one of the ways that we can get around that, well, you'll have to help me to lasso this and bring it back to the atheism Christian debate. But within Christianity, the way I get around it is, what I do is, number one, I am fortunate to have a position at a non-denominational school with a very minimal statement of faith where I can move around quite a bit, and it's not the end of the world. Right. So I have a little more freedom than most people do. But I just teach all the views that are available on a particular issue and let people make up their own minds.
Right.
Now, in the atheist Christian perspective, I'm not sure what that looks like, except that you just ought to tell the truth. You ought to say what you believe. So you're saying with an atheist or a Christian might say something on a channel because they know that's what keeps the patrons rolling in.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. Or any sort of pundit, there's political channels that do that, commentary channels that do that. Sensationalistic, my channel will probably never be enormous, and one of the reasons is that it'll never be sensationalistic. You won't see me covering something just because it immediately became popular and you got to jump onto it. So if something immediately becomes popular and you have to jump onto it, a lot of the times you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you don't have access to all the information yet. You're just giving opinion related commentary on something because you want to make sure that you hit that algorithm or you get on that bandwagon. And there's something to be said for that. For certain people, they may have the best of motivations, but it's a game you kind of need to play if this is your job, because it needs to be lucrative enough that you can survive off of it. I'm very, very lucky in the way that this isn't my job. I have the freedom to, I've been working on a video for a month and a half, for goodness sakes. Other people don't have that liberty. And the people that do it well, I just want to get this out really quick first, because I think it's important to state, but the people that do it well, do it in an unbiased fashion and encourage other people to fact check them and don't present information they don't know as though they know. Right? So there's certain people that are going to have to do that in all realms, in this realm and others, that are going to have to, comment on things that are topical and timely. The ones that I respect the most, and the ones that I feel like I can trust, are the ones that present their sources and say, don't necessarily just listen to me. This is my opinion. This is what I've based my opinion on. Here are my sources. Go formulate your own opinion. And don't encourage their audience to take on their bias, but instead recognize to their audience that they have that bias and encourage the audience to do what they can to advocate for their own understanding and educate themselves. So that's how I personally attempt to get around it and make sure that people can trust my motives, is by doing things like that. And the people that I respect the most are the people that do that too.
Yeah, so I was just trying to get clarity. You said something about you'd been working on something for a month. What was that?
A month and a half. Well, I don't just do live streams. I do edited videos as well. For a month and a half, I've been reading research papers, because I'm putting out a video on why religion isn't a mental illness, because I'm sick of hearing that counter-apologetic. I can't take it anymore. It drives me banana bonkers. So I have just been reading research paper after research paper and study after study, and going through the ICD-11 and the DSM-5 with fine-tooth comb to fully construct this video. But I have that liberty because, I have a full-time job. This is something I do because it means something to me. It's just a really weird, advocacy hobby that I'm lucky and privileged enough to have an audience for.
Yeah.
So I have that liberty. But there's other people, once this becomes your job, you don't have that liberty, and it becomes very, very difficult to traverse the line of making sure that you're adequately disseminating information to an audience that you have influence over. You can't underestimate the importance of the influence that you may have when you're on platforms like this, because you could, if you discount it and just haphazardly present yourself any which way you choose with limited or no information and just don't care, you run the risk of influencing other people to also make decisions on bad information and think that it's okay because you have a following, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I can agree with you that I appreciate the channels that do give their sources. On occasion, everybody has that moment where they forget to put a link to an original video, and then I run back in and put it in there. I agree with that. I think we ought to do that. We're all, you're an advocate, so you're a self-described advocate. So you're an advocate for something.
Yeah.
And so we all believe that we're offering something valuable, and we all are presenting from a perspective. Even if you do what you said, where you say, well, I'm giving you here's all my links, you go decide for yourself.
Yeah.
These people, there's something a little deeper, and I don't know how many people feel this way about me, but in general, with quote unquote influencers, people come to appreciate your opinion and your position. And whether that's for better or worse, they know Shannon Q believes X, and she's giving me all the stuff and she's telling me to go check it out. But she believes X, and I trust Shannon Q. So even when we do try to be as fair as we can about that, we're gonna impact people with just our position.
Yeah.
So the best we can do as influencers, I think, is to present all the information, and then, like you said, go tell them to go check out the rest.
And just make sure that what you're presenting is accurate as you as is conceivably possible. Because I think that's important.
On my side, let me just say this: there's a good side of that on from my position, where, I know that there's all this stuff about there, like seminaries and Bible colleges. It's like getting a degree from Hogwarts. I got you. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. In our world, we are held to standards like we hold each other to standards. And so if somebody's out there with a YouTube channel giving, plagiarizing or presenting quotes out of context or something, there's like a job security issue there for somebody like me, man. I mean, you've got to be really careful. So I'm with you on that, not only for the obvious reasons that that's what you should do, morally speaking and ethically, but I mean, channels like that, I don't think will survive. Well, they will survive, won't they? They'll be propagandizers, but not with the right kind of people.
Unfortunately, sometimes there's an argument to be made that they cultivate and create groups of the wrong kinds of people. I really do think, from my perspective, and I'm open to better ideas. No matter what, as soon as you start making any money, as soon as you start having patrons, and to a certain degree, there's a necessity in that. One, it's motivating. Two, it allows me and other people like me and you to put more money into the channel, like to better the quality of the content. And it also, like, for somebody like me, it allows me to go to conferences where I have to pay my own way to go meet people and stuff. And, some of it, like, once I get to a certain level, not necessarily now, like, it'll allow me to maybe live a more freeing life. And it is work. But because of that, people are going to say that is your motivation for doing it. There's no way around that. Because you're making any money at all off of it, people are going to say that that's your motivation. Because people love to attribute motivations to each other. Because then they don't have to listen to what you're saying, because they can say that you're not worth listening to because your motives are X, even though what you're saying may be completely valid. The best way to do for me is to just make sure that I'm showing everybody where everything comes from and why I'm saying it, and source everything that I'm saying, do the best job I can that way. That's the only way around it, because I'm not going to be able to stop it. I don't
people
think.
Can tell. It's hard for people, for Christian YouTubers, especially if you're in it professionally, like I am, there's just a whole stereotype around that, around like Chuckster preacher type people. So I totally hear you. I think people can tell to a certain degree. The reason we're talking right now is, I hope, because we could tell that about each other. And so, for a long time, for years, I mean, I've had Trinity Radio as just an audio only podcast since like 2009, which tells you how bad I am at growing an audience. But
you didn't even know what Twitter DMs were until I told you, Braxton.
I never used Twitter until now. And since I have, it's been a train wreck.
I ruined your life. Twitter's like Lord of the Flies. It's where society's going to die.
But I think people can tell. They can get a vibe for who you are. And let's talk for a minute, if it's okay. I'm not trying to coerce the conversation, but let's talk for a minute about something. So I've had a lot of people ask me to do online debates, and I'd like to explain where I am on that. Okay. So I've had multiple live, because that's part of the conversation here. Part of what we're trying to do is have better conversations. Well, debates on YouTube channels is a big part of that. And I've had several live public on stage debates over the years. But there's two or three things that I think are important to explain to people that have asked me, because I've had a lot of people ask me. One is simple. I work at a school that would prefer I not do that kind of thing. The second one is, and this is the more important and meaningful one, is like we've been saying, we have whole lives. This is not our live. You have a huge channel compared to mine. You say you'll never have a huge channel. If I could have an audience like yours, I'd feel like I won the lottery.
My audience is pretty awesome. I love you guys. You're great.
I think I have a fair amount of your audience. I think my audience is mostly atheists.
Just me and my friends waiting to see if you did a response video to us.
But But another guy that I think it's a guy that I've started liking, or at least I've had pleasant conversations with, is Godless Cranium.
Oh, Mike, yeah. I used to
Yeah.
co-host a podcast with Mike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I had a good little back and forth with him the other day on Twitter. But what am I saying?
The reasons that you don't engage in
Yeah.
like debates and conversations in this realm.
So that's one thing. Another thing is I put a lot into debates. I mean, it's probably true that I could sit down and talk to somebody about something and it'd be fine at any time. But I put, Mike Jones, when he was on our show the other day, he said, before I debate a given topic, I want to know that I like to at least try to be like the world's master of that issue. Well, I'm kind of that way too. I put a lot of preparation into it because I'm a big on preparation, and so it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot out of me, and this is not my full-time job. My full-time job is a seminary president and a professor at a seminary, and also I have 2 human daughters at home and a wife. I've got a blonde, a redhead, and a brunette at home. You can see what it's done to me. So when I get done, they want their dad, they want their husband to be at home, and a lot of the time I travel too. Like I was at Purdue yesterday lecturing on the resurrection. So so it's just I don't have time to devote to preparing for debates and things like that. So there's 2 good reasons. And I guess those are the reasons. Now, when I debate, that doesn't mean that it won't be that way in the future. In the future, perhaps that'll change. I have done it in the past. I've done online type stuff in the past. But I'll tell you, as it comes to that, one good thing in terms of having good conversations is if someone presents themselves to another person in an antagonistic way during an invitation for a debate, that sends a signal right there. And that can happen on both sides.
What the tone is going to be for that debate, conversation, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So, I had a good discussion the other day. I had a good little back and forth on Facebook Messenger with T-Jump. And we talked about the possibility of doing something in the future next year, maybe sometime. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But he's always been pretty cool about it. So that's a side of it that I think is relevant to mention.
Well, if you're going to talk to T-Jump, you're going to have to look into pantheism because that's going to come up. I don't know if you've watched any of T-Jump.
Pantheism.
Yes. Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah, I think another side of this too is knowing when a conversation that's already happening has run its course.
Mm-hmm. Are you giving me a hint, Braxton?
I was about to say, that's not me shutting this down. No, but one thing that I like a Dale Carnegie type thing that I learned a couple of years ago that's been really helpful in discussions in my marriage is that once you get heated to a certain point, and I'm pretty good about, even if I were to, I'm a pretty laid back guy, but if I were to get pretty amped up, I'm good at not showing that. But one of the things is after your blood pressure gets to a certain point, you're just not thinking reasonably anymore.
Right.
So you're going to sound dumb, and you're probably going to not be cool anymore to the person you're talking to. Yeah. And so I think sometimes I'm watching these debates online, and I'm thinking, y'all just need to be done,
That's half the reason I kind of entered this realm to begin with, to be honest with you, is I watched so many debates just as a viewer, because I was a YouTube fan long before I was a content creator. And I would be really amped about listening to the perspectives on the topic. And it would be not far past opening statements. And it would just degrade into this infuriating, everybody's talking over everybody. People are leveling personal insults, ad hom festival of insanity. And I would leave learning absolutely nothing. And then both sides declare victory and walk away. And me as an audience member, I mean, I guess that there's a certain demographic of people that like to cheer on that sort of, Coliseum style spectacle. But I was a viewer that was tuning in because I was legitimately interested in the arguments and how people get to their perspectives. And I wasn't seeing that happening a lot to the point that it was, I think, a lot of people that really took the the conversations seriously weren't engaging as much with smaller channels because they were looking for those dumpster fire conversations that they could, cheer on how much of a train wreck it was, as opposed to conversations not as many people maybe will tune in initially to see, but actually advance the dialogue. So that's one of the reasons that I came in, and that's one of the reasons I appreciate you coming in to have a conversation with me about these types of things and share that perspective. Because
you've been helpful to me, Shannon. Honestly, nobody knows, that we've had these conversations, through direct message or whatever it is, that this weird Twitter
DMs. You're getting there, Braxton. You're getting better.
And one of the things that's been really helpful is I'm a pretty, well, I am kind of actually kind of a thin-skinned guy. When I pastored a church, I pastored 2 churches in my 20s. And when I was pastoring, the churches were growing really well. But when somebody would leave, even if I thought it was better for the harmony of the church for that particular person to probably find another church, it really hurt me. I took stuff personally. And so and I kind of got over that in my 30s, but YouTube is a whole other ballgame. I mean, you've got people on there saying horrendous things to you, and not all. I mean, I want to highlight the good conversations that I've had with YouTube commenters who are atheists, who have become really friendly and I really admire and are good thinkers and everything else. But it was a whole different thing. And then you've got other people who become antagonistic. And you've been helpful to me personally in just kind of being like, hey, don't let that stuff get to you, and keep your head up. That happens to all of us. And so I really appreciate that. That's definitely been a value I've gotten from knowing.
Oh, no problem. Really, honestly, no problem. Because you don't realize what it's like to have hundreds to thousands of people screaming obscenities at you. Well, caps locking obscenities at you, talking about you, doing videos about you, because they've imbued a personality, a parasocial personality onto you. Like, they've constructed a version of you in their head based on what limited information they have, and decided that they hate that. They hate that thing that represents you to them, even though there's no manifest way that it is you, because they just couldn't conceivably know. They've never interacted with you even in an individual basis. They've just seen snippets of you and constructed that personality, and it infuriates them because it stands against something that they believe. It stands for something they believe is wrong. I had to learn that for myself, that all of these people are either mad because they're mad at atheists in general because of previous interactions that they've had, or they're mad at women in general, or they're mad at people who have had these dialogues before, or people who discuss the types of issues that I discuss, and I just represent another piece of that puzzle to them. And it could be the same for you with Christianity. There's people who have felt legitimate harm because of people who espouse Christian beliefs and other beliefs, and people who have felt legitimate harm because an atheist came at them hot and acted like an asshole or did something bad to them, right? So we become archetypes to them that are much bigger targets, and it's far more cathartic to take a shot at us than it is to take a shot at the average Twitter user or whatever. And it's nothing that they can't really do to have that release in their real life. So we become that for them, and that's just going to be something that's organically going to happen consistently, especially when it's a contentious and emotionally charged issue, which is why I think it's important for people like you and I and others to start having these conversations on a better level so that we can model more productive dialogues and help shape a different sort of culture around these conversations where it's not so polarizing.
Sure.
If any of that makes sense. But I don't mind helping you with that at all, because my God, sometimes I've thrown my phone across the room. I have a screen crack. I have thrown this phone.
Well, I think this brings me around to an issue here. I think trying not to take offense. So when I was saying at the beginning about how, because these are charged issues and there are things that, and you said it good there are things that people suppose that you symbolize that they think are horrific, and the same toward me. As a result, they come into these things and they spew what they feel about those issues onto you and I. And the difficult thing is to try not to take offense when the other side does that to you, which is very, very difficult. That's something I've tried. And if you'll permit me, and of course, there's something else I want to say about this issue, but it's a little bit like, whether you think Christianity is true or not, it's a little bit of a Christ-like type thing, where it's kind of like you understand why they're doing what they're doing. You get it. And so it's kind of like a forgive them for they don't know what they do type situation. And that could sound really condescending, but what I mean by that is, when I see someone saying something about me that it would be more appropriate toward a much more stereotype sort of guy, I just kind of have to understand, I know why they're saying this. And part of what they feel, I feel toward that guy. So it's okay. And that's a hard thing to do, especially when, and this is the thing that hurts me the most, is when people question your motives, like we were saying before. I don't care if they say that, that I don't care what they say about the rest, or if they think I didn't make a good argument or whatever else. When someone questions my motives, and I know my motives, and I know, no, I'm not in it for the money, or I'm not lying. Like, whether you can think what I believe is stupid, but I really do believe it. I'm not lying to you. When people question my motives, that's the thing that I think gets under my skin. Just because, not mad at them, just I hate that people feel that way. I hate that they see that. I hate that this culture of YouTube has done that to people, to where we don't trust each other. You can't take anybody at face value. One thing I was going to say that has nothing to do with that, because I'll forget it, and I think it's important, is there are certain spiritual type words that Christians sometimes use, and I try not to use them. And I think that things like that are good for these conversations. So Jacqueline Glenn was saying something about this the other day. Like, I wouldn't say to you something like at the end, like, well, Shannon, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be praying for you, blah, blah, blah. Because even though I might be praying for you, I know how condescending that sounds to you.
Right.
And I think those kind of little olive branch type things are really helpful.
Yeah, because we can lose each other's humanity a lot, I think, because and I keep saying in this realm, but like, it just in general in life, when you meet somebody with a specific label, you have a preconceived bias about that person. When there's somebody who has a platform to have these sorts of dialogues, you can fundamentally dislike the idea of that person without even knowing anything about them, without even hearing them open their mouth, yet you already fundamentally like the idea of what they represent to you. And this is one other important thing I want to add to this, and then I'll read. So there's some super chats that went through. I want to make sure that I read those. What's difficult for me, I'm fine with I've come to peace with people attributing motives to me. The best thing that I can do is make myself as transparent and make my integrity as much out on the table as it is conceivably possible. And just people are going to do whatever. I've learned to not be hurt with that, because I know my integrity, so I don't need to be hurt by that. One of the things that bothers me is that I like constructive criticism, and I'm very self-analytical. I'm very analytical in general. I overthink things a lot. Everything. So I like to receive that criticism and really start to, think about, do I need to reassess? Do I need to look at it this way? Did I present that thing wrong? Like, all that's valuable to me. But when you're inundated with critiques and criticisms and attacks, just outright attacks in many instances, it's difficult to discern. Like, it becomes very difficult from a psychological perspective to say, oh, okay, well, this person said that thing I said was hurtful or was incorrect. Then there's this list of people who say the exact opposite, and then this list of people who are saying something different. How do I find a way to discern what's valuable and important from what's just nonsense or anger? And that can sometimes get me really spun and stressed out, because I never want to hurt people, and I want to be correct, and I want to articulate things. So that's the thing that's the most frustrating for me, is that sense of discernment, trying to weed through all that.
I'll pray that you have a spirit of discernment about that.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I think honestly, a good thing to do is to get some people that you really respect around you. You know, I'm in a text chat with some other YouTubers that I really respect.
Yep.
And so I funnel those kind of thoughts through them. I think that's a good.
Me too. I've cultivated a good group of people that operate in this realm that, you know, when something happens, oh, there's one in the chat. I saw Vice Rhino come up. He's one of the people who's a friend of mine. That I can go to them, and I know I can go to them in confidence. And I think you really do kind of need that. Before I read super chats, is there anything you feel like we didn't touch on? I know this is a broad topic, or anything you feel like is important to say that I haven't had given you the opportunity to do?
I don't think so. I've just really enjoyed being here. And if I don't get a chance to say so again, thank you for having me on your channel. I'm honored to be on your channel, and I hope that people take it sincerely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I hope people do check you out so that they can see what a horrible grifter you are. Decide for themselves.
I might be. I'm still trying to figure out what it means.
Get Urban Dictionary, for goodness sakes.
Okay.
All right. Let's read some super chats. I think I figured it out. All right. So JMD Apologetics. Oh, hey, John. Says, is that Phil Collins or Jason Statham?
Jason Statham. It's Joey Jason Statham.
That's funny. I'm going to assume that he's talking about you.
Well, what's funny about that, I don't mean to interrupt, but what's funny about that is somebody who I don't know who this person is in the UK has a blog, and they put a picture of me, and they said that they had recently found my channel and they were really enjoying it. And they said he's kind of like a young Jason Statham and a cooler William Lane Craig. And I thought, that is I want to put that on books. Like, that's the best thing anybody's ever said.
Braxton Hunter. Cross between a young Jason Statham and a cool William Lane Craig. You need to... I'm sorry, it choked me. Yeah. You need to get a merch store, Braxton. You need to put that on a shirt.
That's right.
All right. Nervardia. Hi, Nervardia. Who's another one of my good friends in this realm. Atheists and Christians are humans first, and atheists second. Love you, Shannon, and thanks for raising the discourse. Oh, I love you too.
Cool. And
Mr. Bear sent $10. Thank you, Mr. Bear. And it just says, for forging rational discourse. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate it. I'm glad that hopefully everybody enjoyed the stream. And thank you for coming in. Braxton, you feel as though I let you cover everything that needed to be covered?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't have any telling me off to do?
I would never.
I wouldn't suggest that I'm crazy.
I believe it.
All right. For anybody who tuned in late, tell everybody who you are and where they can find you quickly before we go off air.
Yeah. So you can find me at braxtonhunter.com, or more specifically to this context, youtube.com/Braxton Hunter. I'd appreciate your subs. And I'm currently the president of and professor at Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary at Trinity SEM, trinitysem.edu. And you can take classes right there from where you're at. And we'll even see what we can do. Maybe there's a certificate program we can make for atheists or something.
That'd be interesting. All right. Well, I'm Shannon Q. If you're new here, just hit subscribe because you're already here, I guess. I'm garbage at this stuff. And I have links in the description for like Discord and Patreon and other various things. Oh, and I have a store where you can buy stuff. So if you want to do that, that's cool. If you don't, whatever. I'm glad you watched. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. And after I just rambled nonsense, help elevate the discourse. Bye, everyone.